All right. Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project. I'm going live tonight with my special guest, the legendary Khat Hansen. I'm very, very excited to have her on. She hasn't really done too many interviews in the past, and I've just been very lucky to get her to come on and do an interview with me and give us some knowledge about the cryptids, interdimensional things, and just about everything around the spectrum that she knows about. So without any further things going on, here is Miss Khat Hansen.
That would be me.
Awesome. Let's see. I need to open up my chat. Chat comments. Okay. So I guess we can start with. I know you've talked about this before, probably several years ago in your YouTube show, but what kind of got you into learning about? Well, I know you learned about it, but what kind of got you into all this? I know you had experience as a young child, so if you want to kind of divulge into that, love to hear it.
Well, it's kind of weird. At least that's what I've been told. Basically, I started doing this when I was 3 years old. They started training me to be a go-between because I could see things that other people could not see. So they handed me off to one set of elders who taught me what they would know. And then I got to play pass around to a whole bunch of different elders in different tribes. So that way I got to learn different things, learn about everybody because being the gift that I have, I'm able to pretty much understand them. And I haven't decided whether that's a blessing or a nightmare, or sometimes I think it's a nightmare. Because to be able to understand how something that's so different thinks and I guess follows through with its thought forms is a little bit unnerving. I'm not going to say it isn't because it gets downright terrifying at times.
Oh, wow.
So I consider it a gift. I don't consider it evil because my own people were taught that one of us would come that would be able to extend the hand to all nations, to all peoples, to help them understand these beings. There's not just one of us. There's supposed to be a bunch of us. I've only come across 2 other people, though, so far that are able to do what I do. And they really don't want to have anything to do with it. It scares them. So, kind of intimidating.
I can only imagine the things that you get to see that no one else can see, and you have to kind of either avoid it or deal with it. So you've chosen to deal with it and kind of help people out through it and give knowledge. So I'm very grateful that you've chosen to do so.
Thank you. I want to help people. I want people to understand that even though we may look like we're just here by ourselves, around us, there's things going on constantly, around us that people may not be able to see or sense, and a lot of it has to do with things that are being shown right now. You can call them Dogman, Nashovachito, Ophi. You can call them whatever you want to call them. We have Steyama, Bigfoot, Oma, Sasquatch. I mean, just all kinds of different types of beings that are stepping out now. And it was foretold that they would step out because I have a saying on my Facebook page that says that in God's hands, intentional evil can be used for the greater good. And that's the truth. He's the only one who can do that. Okay. So he can take these evil things that choose to do evil and bend them to his will. And that's kind of what's being shown to us right now. They're stepping through, and they're kind of giving us a wake-up call, saying we've been here for a long time and you guys aren't paying attention.
I'd say so. I mean, like you're saying, they're stepping out. Like there's so many more sightings compared to 20, 30 years ago. I mean, they're just kind of crawling out the woodwork, and everywhere you turn around, people are seeing whether the Dogman, the Bigfoot, these crawlers, they're seeing all kinds of things out there. And they, just like you said, it's time for them to be released.
Yeah. And I tell my kids it's the put up or shut up. You need to step up and do what you're going to do right. Either do it right or do it wrong. The choice is on you. And these guys are pretty intimidating. When you told me we were going to be doing it at this time, I was kind of grateful because I've done a couple different videos where you can hear in the background in the middle of the morning at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You can hear things beating on my walls.
I've heard something hit your walls of one of your lives, and you're like, oh, that's just a dog, man. They're beating on my walls, and you're like yelling in the background to knock it off, and they stop after a while.
Yeah, they come on my roof. They go through the windows. They like to get everybody's attention. They like to scare people, to get that fear. They like to have that power over people. And I keep telling everybody, you have to stand up in your own right and not be so intimidated. Stand in your light, stand in your power, because this is our planet. This isn't their planet. We were put here for a specific purpose, and so we need to stand up and say, you know what? No, that's not happening. So I always tell everybody to not be afraid so much. I see your wife. There she is. I love that picture of you guys. I do. Oh, there's David. You guys are so good. Thank you, guys. I love watching people come on. At least I know I'm not just talking Tom's ear off.
No, you're not even. You're pretty much giving us knowledge and helping us out without even realizing it. Because I mean, the stuff that is, a lot of people. I'm not. I'll never call nobody out, but a lot of people would claim to be experts and know this and know that. But you're actually, I mean, you encounter these things. You have the power to kind of just set them back and cast them off when not many people have that certain power that you've obtained over the years that you were gifted as a young child. So I mean, it's kind of hard to do something that you don't know what you're doing. So I give you lots of encouragement and props for that.
Well, thank you. I don't take any of that credit. That I didn't almost come to the internet. I had a really good friend for a long time. His name was John Beck Jordan, and knew me as a kid. And he said, you know what? You need to tell these people what is going on. And I was like, no. And he said, yes, because as a kid, he used to follow me around with his camera up on the reservation, and he'd follow me around and he'd say, show me where Bigfoot is. And I'd sit there and laugh, and I'd see he's right there behind you, and he never believed. He never believed until one day we were walking past a rain barrel. And back in Oregon, we used to collect rainwater back in the day. That shows you how old I am. And I said, it's right there. And he said, no. He says, come on, show me where he is. And I said, bend over and look. He's right there over your shoulder. And so he looked at his reflection in the rainwater, and he fell on his butt. He was absolutely terrified.
Oh, I bet. So, seeing something that was he like an 8.5, 9-footer?
Kiosa's about 9.5 feet tall. He weighs almost 1,000 pounds is my estimate for him.
Wow.
So yeah. And after that he was like, please. So right before he died, he made me swear that I would come to the internet and tell people what I know. So I've been doing it ever since, trying to enlighten people. So that way everybody kind of gets a heads up, because I don't know about you. I don't like being socked out of the blue with things. I'd rather just coming, So.
Absolutely. And now Kiosa, I mean, when did you meet Kiosa?
Kiosa I was almost 5 when I met him.
And he was juvenile?
No, that's his son.
Okay.
I was deer hunting with my father. This is an old story. I was deer hunting with my dad and my uncles. They're the ones who raised me, aside from my grandma. And back in the day, they weren't like they are now, with being paranoid with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they would go deer hunting and they'd leave me in camp, and they say, okay, be good. Take care of camp, do what you're going to do. Make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Play with you. I had 2 Barbie dolls, and I said, okay. So they left, and I figured they'd be back soon, and I slept, played, ate, and I kind of heard like a crying. I've told this story so much, I've heard like a crying sound. And I was thinking it was like another kid, that had been left in deer camp. So I was like, I'm going to go find him, because I'm here. It's boring and I want to go find him. And I always ran amok as a child. So took off, followed the crying, and came across this ugly, dirty, hairy kid sitting underneath some cedar trees. There was a fallen cedar tree, and he was sitting there crying. And I tell people this, and they don't really know what I'm talking about, but back in the 60s, we had communes, in where these hippie people raised their kids, and they didn't wear diapers and they didn't wear clothes, and they just kind of ran amok. So
it was the free love days back when everyone just lived free and no clothes, no shoes, no, just living out in the wilderness.
Yeah, so I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he's one of those, and I'm asking him, where's your mom? Where's your dad? And he didn't talk. He didn't speak Chata. He didn't speak English. He didn't speak German. He didn't speak anything that I could understand. So I was like, oh man, don't cry. I wanted him to stop crying because I was the only child. So that was like fingernails on a chalkboard to me because my dad didn't allow that. So I was like, stop it. So I gave him a choice of a doll, and he took the long blonde-haired Barbie doll, proceeded to stick her in his mouth and pull her head off and suck her hair and everything. I was like, ugh, and he stopped crying, and we kind of just did like little kids, played dolls and beat each other with them and things. And the next thing I knew, he kind of got really excited, and he was bouncing up and down. And I was like, man, he must have to go to the bathroom or something, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And he was looking up, and I was trying to understand, I don't know what this means. So just as I looked up, there was like this ginormous wall of hair that just slammed down between him and I. I mean, there was like maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to get my camera here, like this much difference between us, like 2.5, maybe 3 feet.
Oh, yeah.
And it slammed down in between us and just started growling. And I was thinking to myself, what is this? Is this a bear? What is this? And I looked down and saw big feet, human feet. And then I looked up and up and up, and it was this enormous hair-covered man, and he was growling at me, and I was like, oh my heck. So I'm trying to scoot away from him on my butt, and I'm pushing off with my feet, kind of crab walking back. And I remember he turned his face like this and bent down and growled at me right in my face. And that was the end of it for me. I peed myself and got my feet underneath me and took off running all the way back to camp, ran into the tent, buried myself under the sleeping bags, and said, I'm done. I'm done.
That young, seeing that, something that big, it's...
To me, his head touched the sky. That's what it looked like to me. And to this day, he has these big canines, right here. Mm-hmm. And they absolutely terrified me because the only thing I'd ever seen with canines like that was a bear or a cat, a cougar or something like that. Yeah, something, big. I mean, I have a necklace of his with one tooth on it, and the tooth is like that big.
Oh, wow.
They're big. And it terrified me, I was really scared. And so here comes Dad and uncles. They've got their deer, and they're hanging them up and things. And they're yelling at me to come out and come see and come eat. And nope, stayed underneath sleeping bags. I wasn't coming out. And they finally figured out after a few hours what was going on. So then I had to admit that I left, didn't do what I was supposed to do. So he came and got me and said, "Show me." So I showed him where the big hairy man was. And I remember they took all their rifles. They had big Bowie knives, for hunting, skinning, things like that. And we went. And it wasn't real hard to track where I'd been because it was a mess. I just scrabbled going over everything. Break-in didn't care as long as I went through it. And when we got there, I didn't understand at the time, but they saw those footprints and they said, "That's it, we're done. We're going now." And I remember all the deer being thrown into the back of the truck. I remember me going into the back of the nothing was folded, nothing was put away properly. It was just chucked into the back of the trucks. And we're gone.
Bug out and go.
That's it, and I was in so much trouble. Oh my heck, I was grounded. Lost my Barbie doll because I left it with that dirty kid. And I only had the two. So I was not in a real happy mood. And my dad wasn't a big, didn't know how to deal with girls. So his version of it was, "You're grounded." Well, grounded meant I had to stay in my room, push the button on the intercom. "Daddy, no." Okay. So I can't go out, can't do anything except go to the bathroom down the hall. That's it. So the next morning, he got me up and he said, "You go down and you feed the chickens." I hated doing that job. They're mean. My mom went before she passed. She had these big geese, and so they always bit and chased. And so I was like, I don't do this. I stepped out of the house, down off the porch, and we had a big cedar log that had been cut with a chainsaw for flowers inside of it. And the Barbie dolls were sitting there. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I'm going to take those and stuff them away, So didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, but went down to feed the ducks down at the creek. And he was sitting down there across the creek from me. And you know how you feel when something's watching you? I could feel this. But in Oregon, the bushes are real thick and gnarly, and there's brambles. And so I knew there was something there. And I was like, man, do I run? Is it the wild dogs? What is this, And it was Kiosa, and he was watching me. And he smiled. I wish he'd never smiled because that just terrified me even worse. And he had a leaf, and it had salmon berries and blackberries on it. And he kind of pushed it across the mud at the shallow part, and he was trying to give it to me. And so I took it, and I played with him for quite a while down there. He didn't come any closer, but I got in trouble because I told my dad he was down there, and my dad didn't believe me. He said, "It doesn't take that long to feed the ducks. Where were you?" So I was eating berries and having breakfast, something you said I couldn't do.
The hairy man.
So he went down, saw the big footprints, and after that, before I knew what happened, we had a whole group of them living down in the canyon, and he had moved them there. So, and I didn't understand until I was about 12, 13 years old that the reason that they moved there was because they saw me alone in camp with these 6 enormous men. My dad and his brothers are all over 6'4" and up. And here's this little tiny girl. And that is totally unacceptable. There were no females. And they watched, they had watched while I was in camp, and they saw the guys, eating jerky and things. And
doing guy things. And there's young you sitting aside in the tent, whatever you're doing.
And they were like, "This is a no-no." So when he came, he brought the females with him. And they were the ones who taught me how to take care of myself, do my hair, what to pick and eat, and they taught me a lot of stuff, and it was kind of nice, you know.
It's pretty
So
wild.
yeah, it is wild.
You're like the female version of Tarzan, kind of, out in Oregon when you were younger. Except not raised by apes. You were, like you were kind of, taken in by the female Sasquatch.
Yeah, it's the truth too. I mean, I ran wild. I used to, we had an A-frame house, and I would climb down off my balcony and then jump about the last 6, 7 feet. I jump down and take off into the canyon. And I was wild. I was a wild child because I could see things, and other people couldn't. So I was kind of given a little bit of leeway there. The elders told him, don't put too tough of a rein on her, because if you do, she could stop seeing these things. So I fully admit I was a bratty baby. I really was. They'd tell me not to do something, and I was like, okay.
You were the rebel.
Still am.
Who wasn't a rebel?
Yeah, we had to be back then, just like I say all the time. You got hurt, you were gone from sun up to sundown playing. You got hurt, pack some mud in it, go play, come back home, eat dinner, go to bed. So,
yeah, when the street lights came on, it's time to go home.
And seeing if you lived in the country where I lived, we didn't have
lights. When the moon comes up, it's time to go home.
Yeah, my dad used to say that all the time. Did you not hear us yelling for you? Did you not hear me fire the gun? I was like, yeah. So I don't know. I've always been like that.
So when did you first start seeing the Dogman and Shobashito? When did you first kind of come in contact with them?
Those were my nightmare. Nobody told me about those. Okay, growing up, nobody told me. I always ran in the swamps down in Louisiana when I was at my grandma's house. So I knew about skunk apes. Those didn't bother me. I knew about letiche, which are the lizard people. Those didn't bother me. Things like that didn't bother me. Had never come across Nashovachisos, dog people. Never knew about them or anything until I was 12 years old. And that's the story with Becky. It was winter time. It had just come off being winter. And in Oregon, all the leaves fall down, and they get all mushy, slushy, nasty from sitting there all winter. They're slickery. And I had this stupid little radio thing and wanted to go trade for it. So I begged and pleaded, took my best friend, Becky Weaverstad, with me. And we went back to the gypsy camp, which was way back off of 20 some odd acres to the back. And they stayed back there. And I knew they'd have it. They'd have what I wanted. So I wanted to go back there and trade. And long story short, the whole way there, we kept hearing something, and Becky was scared. I was like, don't be scared. It's probably just Kiosa and his group. But it was kind of different. I was hearing growls, and they only growl when they're intimidated. And kids usually don't really intimidate them. I mean, kids are kids. And that was should have been the first warning sign, but it wasn't for me. I was so focused on this stupid cassette thing. And we got back there, and sorry, my dogs are going off, everybody. Everybody's used to them.
That's okay.
When I got back there, one of the big guys, I don't know what you call them, like security guards for them, they make sure nobody comes into the camp that's not supposed to be there and stuff. They're like, how'd you get here? And I brought Becky. We came to trade, and they're like, your dad just let you come? And I was like, yeah. And because they had already known that there was something different down there. And they were keeping a watch on everybody in their camp. So he walked us back, and then he was being so weird. I mean, he was like 16, 17, 18, somewhere. I'm not real sure because I wasn't interested in him. You know, I was interested in was this radio.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was just being weird. And me, I don't have patience for wimpy things. So I was raised by my dad, you know, so I'm like, oh, just go home. Go. Becky and I will walk home. You know, we're fine. I don't need you to walk me home. I know where I live. So we're cutting through the woods and everything. And I'm hearing the stomping and the snorting and the growling. And it was bad, you know, and Becky's getting worse and worse, scared over it. And finally, I'm thinking maybe it's like a wild dog, but it doesn't come down low like a dog. It's coming from up high, you know? And so we got to the creek, and by now you could just hear it back there, man. It was chasing through. The ground was just banging from it, just foot stomping, you know, as it's running. And I'm trying to shove Becky. My dad, I call it the canyon because down at the bottom of the canyon, it goes walls like this. My dad had bulldozed a road down to the creek. And so you have a straight wall that goes up. And that's the easiest way to get there. Okay. My house is up at the top of the wall. So I'm like, instead of going all the way around the road, I'm like, go, Becky, go. Just go up. And we had stepped, Becky was ahead of me, and I was coming through the creek behind her, and I saw a flash. I heard something, and I saw a flash of movement. And as I turned, this thing stepped out onto the sandbank right there. And I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. I mean, it was like a huge cross between a coyote and a wolf. I mean, it was huge, like huge. I can't, bigger than a Shetland pony.
Wow.
Okay, big. And Becky's screaming. I'm shoving her, trying to get her to go up the wall, you know, and she's like, we just need to go the road. I'm like, get your butt up the wall, you know. I'm shoving her up, and we're grabbing onto baby cedar trees and everything, trying to climb up. Well, they're hearing us scream because I can hear my dad and them up at the top up there. They've been cutting wood and everything. And we're yelling for them. And finally, somebody poked their head over. Well, they're up at the top of this canyon wall, and they can see out. They can see us down below, and they can see what's behind us. We can't see what's behind us because it's all bushes and brambles and things. So now they're losing it. You know, you got my dad and my uncles up there shooting guns. You got everybody freaking out. And finally got Becky ahead of me. I remember somebody's hand came over and grabbed her. And I used to have really, really long hair. And my dad reached over, and with one hand, he had the 30-06 in his hand. It had already been bolted. And he was shooting it, and he grabbed me by my hair and just literally flung me up over his shoulder over the top of that and banged it, you know. And I was freaking. I wasn't even freaking out about the hair pulling. What I was freaking out about was, Dad, you're not supposed to shoot the gun when someone's right there, you know. That's a no-no. And
especially for your ears.
Yeah, you know. And I mean, I was upset over that. I was mad at Becky. I was mad at this whole situation. And he's screaming, that's not stayama. That's not stayama. That's the word for Bigfoot, you know. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And he's like, get in the house now. And, you know, I mean, they were shoving us in the house. And so that thing, to me, was like my nightmare come true. We weren't allowed to play in the canyon anymore. We weren't... we had a neighbor lady down the way where it had tried to come in and scratch her door, tried to come in through her door. She had one of those old barn doors. Do you remember those where the top half would disconnect and you could open it up, and then the bottom half? Well, she had it like that, and I guess she had left it unlatched.
Okay.
And so it was trying to push its way through that way. And when she called my dad and them, they finally came, and there were these enormous claw marks in the door. So that sucked.
Do you remember the eyes on the thing when you first saw it? Like if it had like glowing eyes, like people I know people say they have like those amber like beer bottle in the
Yeah,
sunlight eyes, like that brown glow from
yeah, they
the
do.
amberish.
Yeah, they do. And those are self illuminating, believe it or not. It's got to do with the way the retinas are inside. I've seen a couple different types of them that have them. There are certain stema that have them too. Um, we call those shampway. Those are they're red. They're the funny thing is that I've seen them in green, I've seen them in red, and I've seen them in like this I want to call it beer bottle brown
Yeah.
orange, you know. Um, those are the colors that I've seen them in. So if here's a weird thing too is I've noticed anything that lives in the dark like that has those eyes that are not from this dimension, are able to step between the dimensions. I've noticed that they have that, and I almost am wondering um, whether it's like an adaptive thing for coming here to this dimension that they use it for. So it's
Wow.
one of those weird things that I've tried to figure out over the years. So
Pretty intense.
yeah, kind of scary, creepy. I live here on the reservation here, and we've got a lot of weird things that go on here right now. We've got dogmen, we've got UFOs, we've got stayama.
What about
Um,
skinwalkers?
I work for the tribe here on getting rid of those guys. I don't have patience for them. They irritate me to no end.
No, those are pretty much a shaman or a medicine man can kind of like make that spell work on somebody and change them to shapeshift into the skinwalker. Say they're
Yeah,
jealous of a landowner that they have too much land, so they send a skinwalker out to scare them and maybe you know give up their land or move away so they can become that landowner. Isn't that how they work pretty much?
they're nasty.
Yeah.
Skinwalkers. Here's a fun fact that most people don't know. In Las Vegas, Nevada, when I lived there, we had a an attorney that specifically deals with the tribal members there, and he is a Caucasian man, and he believes wholeheartedly in skinwalkers. And this lady had been told that by her husband's family that if she divorced him, he would send the skinwalker after her, and she was terrified. So she contacted this divorce attorney, and he turned around and told him, "I know what you are. I know what you're trying to do, and if you continue on with this, then I not only will prosecute you, but I will take you and turn you over to another skinwalker and have them work on you." So he pretty much left his ex-wife alone after that. But that's how prevalent they are here, to be able to have that listed in a divorce decree,
Oh,
you
wow.
know. So yeah, they're really prevalent here. They're scary. My own son, when he had come back, he said, "Mom," he goes, "this place that you're living at on this res," he goes, "this res is different," and I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, how come we're going across? Because usually we don't travel across the res at night, after midnight."
Mhm.
And I had to go into town, and I said, "Well, we got a call, so we got to go." And as we were going, there were three of them on the side of the road coming out of the desert, and you could see them. And I, being me, I'm not afraid of them, so I slowed down. And I was like, "Oh, look!" And he was like, "Hit the gas, go, go, go!" Because you could see their feet were kind of that dog lake looking uh, leg, but the
Mhm.
top part of them was human. and completely human. And one of them was carrying a burlap bag. And he was looking at me. He says, "Would you just go? Would you quit doing this?" I floored it, but we had to come back through. And he said, "We're not going to the res, Mom. Go all the way around the res." So that was 2 hours.
Well, sometimes you got to appease your kids, right?
Yeah, especially when they're almost 30.
Well, not everyone can be fearless of these things like you are, because you're so used to them. It's just like a second thing for you. So you're just like, yeah, whatever.
They're all over the Southwest right now. What we were saying about them stepping out more and more, and people are really having an issue here in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico,
Utah,
parts of Colorado. They're having real issues with the skinwalkers.
wow.
Then to become a skinwalker, people don't even realize this, to be inducted into their
Darkness.
group. Yeah, you have to
It's
kill
a real ceremony, isn't it? Like a really, really evil ritual that you have to do, like kill a loved one, eat part of their flesh, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, that's really sick and twisted. So yeah.
But I mean, weren't the Skinwalkers originally kind of brought out from the Navajo and the Utes in with their whole feud, because I guess the Navajo were not doing good with the war with the Utes, so they created the Skinwalker to battle the Ute,
Right.
warriors, and that's how they kind of conquered the Utes, and
yeah,
and then they kind of got out of control with it.
Yeah, to this day, if you know any Ute Indians, they are terrified of them. They're like, no, won't tell you the names of their babies. I mean, if you're introduced to one, he'll say, "My name is John Smith, and this is my child, John Smith Jr." They're not going to give you their first name because they don't want you. You might be a skinwalker. They don't want you casting on their baby.
Oh, wow.
You don't leave your shoes out at night because there's a piece of you that they can use, body fluids and everything, against you. Wow. So yeah, they're very, very serious, and where I live here, sometimes you go up onto the mesa and there's no power, there's no water, there's no nothing up there, to stay in the housing, the Hogans up there, and it's kind of intimidating. You can understand why they're scared. They really are. I mean, I've posted up pictures before on my Facebook page, of what some of the homes here look like. I mean, when you've got cardboard for windows, or you've got pieces of bark that have just been nailed together for a door. Roof. Yeah, a roof. It's terrifying. It really is.
So what do you think about the Skinwalker Ranch? I mean, I know you talk about interdimensional things. You think that's, I mean, a lot of people think it's cursed land. Some people think it's a huge portal. What's your, what's your thing on Skinwalker Ranch?
I think that a lot of things happen there that center around the fact that on this earth, there are doorways, portals, vortices, whatever you want to call them. And for some reason, energy seems to be drawn around that. And bad things can happen there. So when you have Skinwalker Ranch, you have a bunch of Buffalo soldiers that died there. Okay. Uh-huh. So there you've got automatically bad things going on there. Then it's considered cursed land because you're seeing the portals, you're seeing interdimensional beings coming from other realms here. So there again, it's just like layer after layer after layer. And for it to stop being cursed, it would have to be cleansed. And there's just no way, because they've figured out how to keep their foot in that door and to keep it open. And then I'm going to throw it in there. You have our own military sections that have decided that that's a good thing. Let's go investigate that too. So they've thrown their foot into the door as well.
Weaponized, yeah.
you know. So,
Technology, weaponized, whatever they can get out of it.
yeah. So
Aerospace. Robert Bigelow was the biggest aerospace in the country. He bought that, and he had his own little, scientists and I won't say who, but certain organizations were kind of experimenting there as well, and they were probably getting some things out of it, and they're probably using those things now.
I believe they are. I do. I believe they are. Opening doorways is a big one, to be able to open the doorway. I mean, if you think of that on a weaponized scale, it's kind of terrifying because you could open a door to on this side of the world and go over to this side of the world, and have that advantage, just step through and take your troops through. So
Yeah.
it's there was a project years ago called the Philadelphia experiment, and it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that where they were figuring out how to do this, and portals are much safer than experimenting with electricity. They really
Sure,
are.
because people's bodies were getting stuck to the ship when they crossed over. When they came back to atoms in their body, weren't shifting right through the forms, and people's legs and arms were stuck in metal.
Yeah, they were fused to that ship.
Yep.
And it's terrifying. This way, there's a portal already open. You just have to step through. You just have to literally know the frequency, the vibrational frequency to go through. And I'd much rather work with a noise than with electricity. Okay, because I've been zapped a few times. I don't like it.
Yeah, me too. I work on air conditioners, and some of these big rooftop air conditioners on these really big buildings in Charlotte have 460 volts. And when 460 volts hits you, it knocks the hell out of you.
Yeah, no, my no. I'm Aquarius, and for some reason, it like looks for us. It's like, oh, look, an Aquarius. Let's zap her. It's like, and I don't understand why. I really don't. But that it is the God's honest truth. No matter where I'm at, I can shock. I can be sitting down and do nothing, and you come touch me, and I will zap you. It makes no sense. So no.
Okay, let's see. Where are we at now? All right. Do you believe that the government is making these dogmen super soldiers? I mean, do you really? Because I know there's another YouTube podcaster that talks about, and he has a guy named Victor that came across as a government agent and talks about these things being used as a breeding program and government, like a super soldier thing. Like they use them in Vietnam and other, certain conflicts that we have with other countries that they don't talk about. They'll just send them out there and wipe them all out, and there's no human casualties. So you believe in that?
I do. I believe in them making chimeras.
Oh yeah, that's I was gonna get to that.
These are human wolf hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They are not the ones that are the demon. I just call them demon dogs because that's what Nishovachiso is. Okay. These human chimeras that I was given knowledge of about 3-4 years ago. I had some soldiers reaching out to me that were coming back, and they were like telling me what they had seen over there, and I was like, no way. One person I'd be like, okay. 2 people, I'm like, did you guys serve in the same unit? And then 4th guy comes and tells me, and now I'm like, okay, I'm freaking out now. And they were telling me about watching these guys sign up for these experiments, and 2 of them were guards that were posted there, and they literally would watch these wolf chimera beings being trained, and if they weren't trainable, they were shot, they were killed. And they were using I don't know what you call it. It's like for the cows, when you kill a cow.
Cow prodders. Talking about the percussion thing that they put to their head.
Yeah.
That's
what they were doing to these things. They had them chained up, and if they refused to submit or follow any type of protocol training, they would walk up A bang stick. That's what
Thanks.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. It's like when you go diving. Except it was really long, so they didn't have to get close to them. And he said he literally would walk up and pop it in the head and kill it.
Wow.
And that's been kind of one of my things over the years, having found out about these guys, because I was like, I need to find people out there who have ever seen the uniform that these things wear. And one of the uniforms that these things specifically wear are blue jeans and a plaid flannel shirt.
Sounds like
Some
the typical werewolf gala.
It does, doesn't it?
Just the
But
typical werewolf man, blue jeans and plaid shirt. That's like the pretty much,
yeah,
all
like they're
around werewolf from all like the old past movies with the jeans and the flannel shirt,
yeah,
maybe
and
red, black, or red.
they're trying to scare us, to ingrain that in us. I mean, if you see it, what's going to go through your brain? Immediately you're going to go, oh no, werewolf in London, something, whatever. I can't be around that. Got to go. And yet this is standard issue. They come in a green flannel shirt, plaid shirt. They come with a red plaid flannel shirt and a blue one. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And I was told those are the different levels of how aggressive they are, with red being kill all. And do I believe this? Yes, I do. For the simple fact that I had two gentlemen reach out to me from Louisiana, that there was a prison down there. And they came through, and prison is no longer there. It's gone completely. They used everybody there for experimentation.
Wow.
And the prison is gone. The people that were in the prison is gone. There's no record of those people. Nothing. And it really freaks you out when you start realizing the level that's being perpetuated on us, on us lowly people out here. I mean, we don't have any knowledge of this stuff, so it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah, that's I was going to talk about like the chimera. I mean, they were just recently talking about last week or the week before that the Congress or the Senate, they did not pass they weren't going to pass the new rule for the human chimera scientific testing within the government. So if they are not passing it now, who's to say that they weren't doing it for the past 20 years and now all of a sudden they have a conscience?
Yeah, or you can say it's the dark state there and they're not telling us.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, they don't think it's on a need to know basis, and they don't think we need to know. I mean, seriously, if you are a veteran and you come back and you start telling people this stuff, they're going to say, okay, you need to go take your meds. You need to go away.
You got PTSD, you need to go to the VA hospital and go to psychiatric help.
Exactly. Lo and behold, when you go there, you either come back as a vegetable, or you come back with nothing, or you don't come back at all.
Yep. Or they find some kind of crime to put on you as a war criminal or child pornography charges, something to get you out of the picture from ever opening your mouth again.
Exactly. And it's really scary, intimidating, to watch this playing out, and a lot of people don't believe, or they don't want to believe or accept it, and I understand that. I do, because I always tell people your brain is only human. It can only accept so much, before it starts trying to protect you, because it knows you're going to shut down, so if it's not going to allow you to accept it and believe this, then you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. Because when the time does come and you're faced with this stuff, people there again, oh, it's a big person in an ape costume. Oh, it's a big person in a wolf costume, Well, you're ripped limb from limb and you're kind of dead. So there's one problem solved.
That's just like that video that was going across the 15 years ago, the Gable film with that guy that filmed that thing jumping up and down, and somebody came forward and said that they were the one that wore the suit, and they were the one that was doing all that. But well, I guess a ghillie suit. But I mean, if you really look at that video really slow, you see those back legs kick up in the air. I don't think there's one human being, unless you're like the greatest athlete in the world, to do that, and your hips are probably 2.5 to 3 feet wide. You can't do that, because those hips are wide, those legs are really thick, and the way they jump and kick out, that's animalistic, or like I said, beast, or just cryptid style. There's no person that can jump like that in a suit,
right? And
that fast as well.
No, there's just no way. And when that film came out, I was in a Yahoo group, and the lady who owned the group, Linda, I can't remember her last name. She writes
Godfrey, Linda Godfrey, the Dogman.
Yes. She had us all looking at it and things, and that was one of the first things I pointed out to her. I did the stop thing with the motion. I said, that leg right there kicking out to the side like that. I said, that is exactly what I saw this thing do when I was 12 years old, and it stood up. It kicked that leg out, and you heard this horrendous pop. I mean, like somebody who pops their knuckles, only 10 million times louder.
You said that popping is not bone popping, right? That popping is something else, isn't it? So what is that popping noise that people hear?
It's the ligaments sliding over it, and adjusting itself so that it can stand up. Okay. It's got to lock that tendon, that ligament in. It's got to lock it. Okay. And my fingers, see, they're weird. These are not my bones that do this. This is my tendons. See, they're just, and that's the exact same thing that these guys have. It's got to slide over and lock it into place. And they're not the only ones who do it. They're not the only ones who do that. Stayama do it when they go from down
all fours
to standing up. You'll hear that. You won't hear it all the time, but on certain ones you will hear it. I've got two in my group that are hairless, well, except for their kneecaps and some tufts right here on their shoulders and right here on the backs of their knuckles. They're hairless, and they do that when they stand up from sitting. Just boom, they're up, and you'll hear that ka-chunk, and it's my sense that it sounds like someone taking a branch, and breaking a branch. You hear this big pop. Mm-hmm. It's really strange. It really is.
You said there's two that are hairless?
Yeah.
Now, are they more human-like looking, or are they more like animalistic looking, or just kind of creature beast?
They're,
what would you say?
Freaky. Don't ever like to be left alone with them.
Wow.
I used to post up a picture of them, and I had people freaking out because these guys in their history talk about having a human mother.
Oh, wow.
And she was a hiker apparently, or something similar from what I can gather out of them, and she was taken. So they're very conniving, very creepy. I don't like to be left anywhere near alone with them. When they stare at you, they'll make your hair stand up. They really will. And they're one of the few that I'm going to take my glasses off so you can see. When I talk to them or deal with them, they always do this and kind of look at me out of the corner of their eye. I never get a direct straight on, and I'm like, you're being creepy, and I don't trust you, and about that time, I usually grab one of the older males, and I'm like, "No, you stay with me. Don't leave me alone with these two."
Hmm.
So,
That's
yeah,
pretty intense. I don't, that's a sight that you're probably not ready to see. A hairless one, nevertheless one with hair, but a hairless one is a whole nother ball game.
yeah. Their skin is. Have you ever seen somebody who's like a mechanic,
Yeah.
and works with their hands, and their
Yep.
hands are real wrinkly and tough and leathery
Yep.
looking?
Leathery like an old baseball glove.
Yeah, that's what they're like, and even their kneecaps are wrinkled. I mean, my other guys, um, some of them have patterning in their hair, and you can see it in their skin. Okay, so like if it's a brown and a blonde and a black, you're gonna kind of, if you move the hair,
Tuck
you're gonna,
hair, yeah.
yeah, you're gonna see it. These
You can
guys
see the
don't.
hide. You can see like the colored hide, right?
These guys don't have that. It's just
Well, they're hybrids, so they're not going to be able to have that hide that you're normally seeing.
yeah,
So they're going to have more of like a human skin.
yeah. And
That's
those are the
crazy.
those are the two that when I have to go out at night and take food up, I take things that have been killed, like we have javelinas out here and things, or farmers.
Roadkill.
Yeah, they donate, and this keeps these guys from coming into town, coming in and scaring people. So they don't like seeing them in the cotton fields and things. So I take it up to them, and these guys, these two, no. If I go up, I take a 444 Marlin. I take a bow. I take a couple knives.
You need something big. I mean, a 223 AR-15, 357 is not going to do the job. You need like what you said, a 454, a
444.
444 Marlin, or a 450 Bushmaster, or even a 458 Rigby.
Yeah.
So, and something that's big caliber. I mean, I just got a 7.62 by 54 Mosin Nagant antique rifle, which is like an old World War II, I think, or World War I rifle, but it was converted. The old wooden stock was converted to the black poly plastic, and I think it holds like 3 shells, I think, because their bullets are so big,
Yeah.
the rounds. But the place that I usually get my ammo from sells incendiary rounds from Bulgaria. But I think for 500 rounds, it's $900. But the incendiary rounds are the ones, the heat tracer ones that burn with sulfur in them.
Yeah.
So those are the ones you want to use if you want to take one out. If you had to, I'm not saying it's okay to go hunting one, but if it came down to your life, that's what you want to have in your loaded in your barrel.
Armor piercing.
Yeah, armor piercing. Yeah,
And they are some of the most intimidating ones that I've ever had to deal with. And I'm not going to lie, when I've had to deal with them, I'll stay in my house for a couple days afterwards. I don't want to go back out there. These two are not allowed down here, in no way, shape, or form. A lot of them come down to get stuff from my garden and things, and these two are not allowed. It's just, and does that breed hard feelings? I don't care. I'm sorry.
no, I understand. Well, it's just like the dogman. You said people. You try to tell people about the actual, these dogmen that come from other dimensions. People think they're happy, lucky, kumbaya, go on a picnic in the garden and play the flute with them. You can't do that. These things will kill you if they have the chance. And they try to act friendly to try to get your trust. And once they got your trust, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't get that. I mean, right now we've got a town that's about I want to say like 45 minutes to an hour away, and they've got a bunch of people missing out of it right now. And I call that Skinwalker Estates because they're like, can you go over there and deal with this? And when I started going over there, I said, well, you guys have a couple different problems here. You have skinwalkers, you have Nashovachito, you guys have some problems here, and we need to take one section at a time and work on it here because it is so bad. these guys are terrifying. And there were a couple people in the town who are, well, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone and they won't hurt you. And I'm sitting here going, let's go over to the store and you can look at the wall here with all the posters of people that are missing. And then let's have this discussion again.
Mm-hmm.
And I get really tired. I mean, I get an email every couple days from somebody telling me, I don't appreciate you scaring people, telling them that dogmen are not nice.
Mm-hmm.
I had dogmen growing up as friends, you know. I played dolls with them. I did whatever with them. And I'm like, if a 9.5 foot, 1,000-pound stayama doesn't want to have anything to do with this creature, why would you?
Exactly. You know, it's funny because there was some missing hiker couple, I think last month in Tennessee, not too far, maybe 3 hours from where I live. And the hiker was in some, I can't think of the name of it. I've made a post in the group about it, but they found the hiker's dog, but they didn't find the hiker till like almost a week later. And in the report, it said there's no details about the death are not to be put out at this time. So it sounds like a cover up to me.
Yeah, that's.
But I just think it's funny that they found the dog, and that's not the first time because there was a lady a couple years ago in North Carolina that's kind of going around YouTube with cover ups and stuff with another channel, and they found her dog or dogs after she was killed. Her dogs were just sitting next to her.
See, and that's bizarre. That's bizarre. And I'm just going to throw this out there for people, okay? Usually dog men, and I'm using that term loosely here, don't mess with other dogs, okay? I mean, they will bully them, you know, and try to take over like a pack leader would do, you know, and try to bully it and make it do what they want it to do, which is intimidate it and make it run away. But if you've got something that's eating dogs, that's not a dog man. Okay, that's definitely not a dog man. That's like us eating another human being. Okay, to them, they're not going to do that. They're just not. They would rather intimidate it, take over it, and control it, or scare it, or make it do what they want it to do. They don't try to kill it. Stayama, on the other hand, I've lost a number of dogs to Stayama. They do not like dogs. And that's because dogs will attack. I've got a whole bunch of videos and pictures of them where they've stuffed coyotes through knot holes in my trees. You know, so yeah, it's just
heads ripped off, all that stuff.
Yeah, they like to make their point
heads
known.
Twisted. You know, that's weird. My neighborhood, I have a good amount of woods. I probably got about 60 to 70 acres of woods near my house. And then there's a creek along it. And I've showed pictures to the groups, and I've talked to you about it a little bit. But in the last 3 weeks, every week or so, someone's pet's been going missing, and they've been posting signs up in the neighborhood. One was a dog. Then there was a cat, and I think there was another dog. And it's just funny how this area where the people are missing pets. But when I take my dogs out at night, I keep a watch on them. And you know, I don't think that the things that are near my woods, the ones that I have kind of like a association with, I don't think that they mess with my dogs. I think they kind of take me as a person of maybe good intent.
Yeah.
And they know that the dogs are part of my clan, so they won't bother my dogs. Because, I mean, I've went out there gifting them. I went out there and made peace with them. I've had a dead deer with its neck snapped and no other marks on its body placed under a tree. So I call that my gifting spot. And then when I went to go check on it the next day, when I dragged it off 20 yards, it was completely gone. There was no drag marks. It was like something threw it over its shoulder and carried it off and said, all right, you don't want it, we'll take it back.
And that's funny because, you know, Native Americans are that way. Mm-hmm. We gift somebody something, and if we walk into the home and see it just sitting there, mm-hmm. It's like I say, me in the jar of dirt. You don't want it, give it back.
Well, I love the intention of getting that deer, but the problem was the meat was spoiled. It sat probably 2 or 3 days in a warm sun, and it wasn't gutted. So that being said, that meat was spoiled. So I mean, I know they like to eat that. They like that rotten meat stuff. I mean, I honestly think that the hunters, the gut pile that they, when you leave the gut pile in the woods, I honestly think that's just an old traditional of gifting them. So they leave you alone and you're giving them the gut pile because that's what they like.
Yeah, I've made myself sick over the years many times eating hot meat, and it's no, it's disgusting. It's vile, but at the same time, you'll do it out of friendship when they're staring you straight in your face, going, "Are you going to turn down my food?" And you're like, "No."
Now, do you know anything about the land between the lakes, Kat? Have you heard any story? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff going on, like this one, the original story, and then someone came out with a new story. I mean, what is your opinion, or have you heard anything about that, or have you witnessed anything about it, or people that talk to you about it?
I have never witnessed anything about it. I have had a couple people approach me about it and tell me some things about it. One of the ones that has always been really creepy to me was she was a gas station attendant at night.
Yep.
And she saw this thing coming towards the gas station. It was after midnight, and she was trying to get it closed up. And she saw this thing, and I commented on it in your group. There's a video, a Facebook video of one of those dogmen running by really fast.
Yeah.
And she saw this thing coming, and then it slowed down to where it kind of shifted into our reality so that she could actually see it.
Yeah.
And she started locking the doors and things and threw herself back into the storeroom and locked that office and then back through that to the storeroom and locked herself in there with no windows, no nothing. And was listening to it out there beating, trying to get into the store. So the next morning, I guess, I'm not sure how it worked. The way she described it to me was in the office, people would pull up to the window to pay, and you would push like a lever, and this window thing would pop out, a drawer, and they could put the money into it, and then she would pull it back in. And that was ripped completely off. There's no way a person could rip this thing off. It would have to have been hooked to like a truck, is what she had
Almost
said.
like an old bank style drawer, right? From an old banking kind of thing. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And she said that it was completely ripped off, and the drawer thing was half ripped out of the wall. And this is a brick building. So, I mean,
how long ago did that happen? Did she say?
It's been about 13, maybe 14 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think the video you were talking about is the Fort Pierce, the guy named Blue that was filming his Facebook Live, and he just happened to pan his camera in his backyard, and you just see something moving real fast, and then you can kind of see the body outline of the dog man, and he's just kind of like, he's in awe, he's shocked, and he doesn't know what to do because he never saw one of them before, that moving that fast and going around through his yard like that.
Most people don't, you don't really see things like that. You catch a blur, you'll catch a blur. And I believe, with what I've been told about the LBL, that it was a cover-up. There is something there that has been there for a long time.
I mean, that's Kentucky, the Kentucky-Tennessee border. I mean, Kentucky's got the biggest mammoth cave system in the country, so they're probably coming from the cave system somehow, moving around. Yeah.
And people don't want to hear that either. These guys live through the caves. It's like when I tell people, they're like, well, why is the dog man in the graveyard, digging up bodies and things? And I'm like, because what I have to tell you is they're not interested in eating them because they've been embalmed. Okay. They're not interested in that at all.
That's not good eating.
No, these guys are your original um, thieves, anything um, sparkly, pickpockety, anything that they can take and send back to give to a female, um, anything like that, they'll take it. They figured out that human beings have really good sparklies, and they're like, let's take the sparklies. They're grave robbers. They're not interested in your body per se. They're interested in what
So
you're buried.
that's why they I've heard of, and someone, I don't know what channel, but I've heard before an encounter where someone said that they've seen a dogman in a graveyard, and when it turned around, it had like a necklace with a sparkly, maybe emerald thing on their wearing around their necks, and it probably stole that person's jewelry and were wearing it, because I've heard that once before. I said I can't remember the show, but that makes sense. That that's because everyone always wants to know why they are seen in graveyards so much, and there's the answer for it.
Yeah, these guys were worshipped from a long time ago. A long, long time ago. I mean, the last video, not the last video, but the video before that I had made with these guys, they were venerated. They were given jewelry, they were given jewels, gems, things like this, because they've been here for so long, and if you think about it, we moved away from that. We're not going to go, oh, hey, look, here's the resident, whatever he is, let's hand him over some jewels. We're not going to do that. So they're having to make do with what they do. And then if you add in the fact that maybe some of them are the chimeras. Okay. Human nature is greed. We have greed in our nature. So maybe that's overriding a little bit of it too. There's just a whole bunch of different factors that play into these guys. Added to the fact too that the mounds that the Native Americans,
the burial mounds.
Yeah, the effigy mounds especially. There's a lot of dogmen type guardians that are locked away. Their spirits are locked away into those because they were made to guard the villages at that point. So they would lock them away.
So what do you think about these giants that they've been unearthing over the last century and a half, that Smithsonian kind of just said, oh, nothing to see here, we're taking it, and there's nothing else to see, we don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm one of those people that kind of has firsthand knowledge of that. My grandfather, my grandmother's husband, was taken into the tribe, and he had giant blood in him, and he was taller than what's the guy that
Andre the big Giant?
Yo. Uh-oh, I lost you. Are you there? I lost you, Tom. Oh well, I'll keep talking. They have these. There we go. Found you again.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that was his name was Robert something. Robert Barden or Robert Hadlow, the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah,
tallest man. Robert Hadlow was 8'6" or 8'7" or maybe even bigger than that.
Yeah, huge guy. But my grandfather, his direct lineage had giant blood in him, and he was taken in. And my uncles are all over, the 6 foot so and so mark. And one of their best memories of their dad was that he could take his hand, put it at the base of your neck, and put his hand over your entire face.
Oh wow!
Pick you up.
Does anybody in your family have like the 6 fingers or the double rows of teeth that they describe, or no?
No, not that I know of, but I'll tell you somebody who does, and that's Kiosa. Kiosa and 2 of the males in that group have 6 fingers and double rows of teeth.
Oh wow!
So there's another conundrum.
Nice. I'm sorry to cut you off. You go ahead about your family lineage with this, with your grandfather. You could grab one hand and palm the whole head.
Yeah.
You were saying
Over you, I mean, that's how big. So do I believe in the giants? Yes. Have I dealt with giants? Yes. There's another podcast guy out there where I was explaining to him about them and what they are and where they come from, and they are locked in. When they left, they were banished from this realm. Okay. Their spirits were locked into trees. So you will see, I have a lot of pictures of trees with their faces in them, and the time of them being allowed back to help cleanse this earth. They are starting to come through. Some have managed to slip through, and be that through the logging. I'm not sure exactly how they get free, but they do. There's some guys, I guess, in the Middle East, Afghanistan, I want to say, with the big red-haired giant.
yeah, the Kandahar giant, the Kandahar from Afghanistan
Yeah,
with the military.
yeah. There's too many of them. There's too many that are starting to step back through into our time.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that with the Kandahar giant, because I think the military, after they experienced that encounter, I listened to the Stephen Quayle interview, and he's part of the Genesis 6 Productions. He said the informant that told him that story, the military, after that encounter happened, the military was told, when you shoot at something, any kind of enemy insurgents, you aim high, because they're so much bigger to hit them in the head to kill them. Because they weren't shooting at the thing's head, but when they started shooting at its head, that's how they killed it. So the military was trained, any enemy insurgents, no matter what they are, aim real high for headshots.
Right.
So,
see, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And what I was saying with them using the bang stick,
yeah.
So I have a whole, you can't see them. Well, I guess maybe you can behind me. I've got bookshelves and bookshelves of books that I write. And I figured out the physiology, muscle mass and bone density and things that are needed to stop, these bullets and such, and to hold these beings up and to keep them with the ability to walk in our gravitational, because that's why one of the reasons that the dinosaurs went extinct is because our atmosphere changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just impossible to support the great big tall necks and like a giraffe and things, but with much bigger vertebrae. So I think these guys have figured out a little bit, over a period of time. They figured out how to come back here and be able to support their own body weight and things. And I believe what you're saying there with the military saying, shoot them in the head. I do.
Well, if they're making hybrids too, if they're hybridizing their species with our species is susceptible to this atmosphere, so we can withstand it. So with that mingling with the species and the hybridization, there's how you get their kind to be able to withstand this environment.
I think so. And I think we're going to be hearing more and more instances of people seeing them more and more. People always want to say, well, she says they live in the trees. That doesn't make sense. Actually it does, because your body has a spirit, it has a soul. So if your physical body's sent away and it's locked into a tree, trees are some of the longest living things on this earth.
Yeah, trees are living.
Yeah.
No one realizes the trees are alive.
Yeah. And
their ring, every year it grows, it adds a ring to its life.
Yeah. And they grow and they get strong, so what better thing to house them until such time as they are needed,
I don't even want to think about these giants coming out of the trees. I mean, it all goes back to like the days of Noah, when people were acting like God, and look what the government's doing now. They're acting like God, trying to make these chimera hybrids they're acting like God, making their own beings. So I guess it's only a matter of time before the next generation of cleansing happens. So I just hopefully I'm ready for it.
Me too. We have to walk in the light. I tell everybody, walk in the light, because it's coming.
Get right with God. Get your prayers. Get your prayed in. And if you don't believe in something higher than yourself, I mean, any kind of spiritual being. I mean, it doesn't have to be God, but you have to have some kind of spiritual, endowment in your body.
Exactly, because that's our mindset. We have to have that in order to be able to have our power to keep our world safe. Best debt, you better stop that. So,
You were saying what we were talking about before. We were talking about the Area 51.
mhm,
So what was it, back in the 30s or maybe the 20s with Alice? It wasn't Aleister Crowley. It was actually Jack Parsons, which is the founder of NASA, and
right.
L. Ron Hubbard, which is, get this, the founder of Scientology.
I know.
Wow. Well, they opened up a portal, and where was that portal actually? Because you told me exactly where that portal is now. So where is this portal that they opened up
Area,
at?
Area 51.
Which is Groom Lake, Nevada,
Yeah.
where
It's,
everybody sees these things, lights, UFOs, interdimensional
yeah.
ships cruising in and out of the galaxy.
What a thing. What a claim to fame. What a thing to open and leave for humanity. I mean, gee, thanks. What else can I do for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty wild. Let's see.
So there's our government. They know what it is.
They know what it is, and they're kind of giving us little bits and pieces. And I think a lot of these movies that they've been putting out, whether it's Dog Soldiers, Underworld, these little Foot movies. You see that movie for the kids, a little cartoon movie called
Oh
Littlefoot,
yeah.
about the Yeti and the Yeti guy in the Himalayas. I mean, these are all just little tidbits of disclosure, kind of giving people little bit of spoon feeding, a little treat here and there to kind of get us used to when the big day happens, that they're just going to unleash it all on us. And so,
My
yeah, it's all
grandmother
real.
used to say something that she's a very wise woman, and she said, if you want to get away with something, she said, tell the truth in such an obvious way as to make it seem a lie. No one will believe you. So as a teenager, I took her at her word. My dad would say, what are you doing? And I'd say, oh, I'm going to go party with these guys, and we're going to go out and we're going to go drink and we're going to go do all this. And he'd say, Catherine. And I'd say, what? And he'd say, you're not funny. Okay, Dad. So yeah, that's our government right there.
Put it right in front of our faces, and we don't even realize it because everyone's too busy, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok,
Yeah.
worried about the worried
All,
about whatever, worried about I wouldn't say election, but the worried about politics, this, that, the other thing, laws, and meanwhile, that's all a smokescreen to keep us from trying to get to the real stuff.
it's magician. Don't pay attention to this hand. Look at this hand.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Right?
And people don't even realize that.
Wow.
So
I was going to see if anybody had any questions for you, because you are the star of the show. Does anybody have any questions for Kat while we're kind of going around? Because I'm done with my little questionnaire, and I don't want to keep Kat all night. So if anyone has questions, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and me and Kat are just going to BS for 2 minutes, and then go from there. So what do you think about the Stayama? These people that go out and say that we can take you out to the woods to see one for $500 or $1,000 to come camping with us, and you could see one.
I have real issues with them. I have real issues with them. It's like me saying, I always tell the kids this when I come to school and teach at the schools, okay? It's like me telling you, I know what you ate for dinner last night, and what you had for dessert and what you watched TV and how much homework you did. And the kids are all looking at me like, you're crazy, lady. And I'm like, yeah, I'm crazy, huh? Because I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing, but if you'll pay me the money, I will go out there. And I've said this before. I've had people who actually have contacted me and told me, and I'm not going to say what state they live in, but it's crazy land. They've moved their bedroom out to the forest so that they can sleep among. Okay. I'm like, I got news for you. That's like me going down to the Skid Row or something and setting up my canopy bed down there and saying, don't get in bed with me, okay?
Yeah. That's pretty much that's like walking out in the wood with going out and into the deep far country with maybe a handful of raw ribeye steak saying, don't bother me, bears, wolves, whatever, whatever, I'm just holding these ribeye steaks, but don't bother me.
Don't bother me, and I have only good intentions, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. And hey, come on over here and I'll have a cup of tea with you. I've known Kiosa most of my life. I am not gonna sit there alone with him or any of the other males for that matter. By myself. I'm not. Okay. I'm just not gonna do it because there comes a modicum of common sense. If you can't control the situation, then you have no business being in that situation. Okay. And people always want to tell me, oh, well, they don't hurt human beings. They don't do this. You don't have enough hard evidence to prove all this. Actually, I do. You can go back through and you can study all the old legends from the Native Americans. You can study the old legends from the Hindu people. All these old legends, because these were a verbal history. They're an oral history. They're not written down history. So they had to keep it pretty straight, to be passed along. So for people to tell me that they're harmless, I'm like, okay, let's go put you naked out on the freeway, and I want you to stop traffic, okay? I want you to see how well that works for you, because it's not going to work.
That's pretty crazy.
It is.
I don't think anybody has any questions. I was going to ask you one more thing about the people are shooting fireworks off by my house. I live about 30 minutes from South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And South Carolina, you can buy fireworks, the really big mortar ones.
Oh,
and for some reason, everybody in my neighborhood this time of the year think they could just go buy fireworks and light them off 4 weeks before the 4th of July. And all they're doing is just pissing money away because, those fireworks aren't cheap. It's probably like $3 a shell, a mortar shell to put out. And my dogs are going crazy because I can hear them barking.
Oh, sure. We have that here. Yeah, we have that here, but you're not allowed to shoot fireworks here because today was 110. Tomorrow's supposed to be 115.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's like dry. That's fire hazards.
Yeah.
So do you, that's what I was going to ask you. What was it, not in the early 80s or the mid 80s when Mount St. Helens erupted? Do you know anything about the Bigfoots that were like helping the army, get other Bigfoots, escorting them out of the woods? Because I've heard stories about that. I think that was on, was that World Bigfoot Radio with Duke? I think he was talking about that. Duke, he knows a lot. He's a good podcaster. I like listening to his stuff.
Yeah. There were a lot of instances up there of them helping, seeking help. I had the same thing happen here when we had the fire up north. I have 3. Well, they're not with me any longer. They've since moved on, but I took in 3 juvenile teenagers, Stayama, that their parents were killed in the fire. They try to they reached out because people don't realize this about the stigma. Okay, they've lived alongside of us for so long, and seen us at our best, seen us at our worst, and they do know that they're here to help us in some support roles. So when the shoe was on the other foot, they needed help with Mount St. Helens. I remember exactly where I was at when it blew up. I was in the middle of McLaughlin Boulevard, rush hour traffic, and it completely stopped. And we all got out of our cars and were just standing there looking at it. It had blown up, and it was just insane. It was absolutely, and I used to hike all over up there. So, do I believe that they asked for help? Yes. Have I been told that they asked for help? Yes, I have been told. I also know too that there were a handful of males that were asked to, what do you call it, like a pilot research program,
Right.
to interface with them and to allow them to explain to humanity what they were and such. And so our government has firsthand knowledge of that.
Wow. I mean, they did put them in the, what was it, the some kind of almanac, the Army engineers.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, they were put out the Army engineers maps, weren't they? With the
Yeah.
Sasquatch. So I mean, if they're not real, then why would the military, the government, put them in that military almanac for the Army engineers?
Yeah.
The Corps of Engineers.
It's the truth. And here's something that this will really date me. I remember Walter Cronkite talking about the labs when I was 9-10 years old that had them. And Willamette newspaper carried an article on how the Berkeley lab, UC Berkeley labs had these stamina there, and they kept them and had them in the labs, and they were having a hard time keeping them in their cages because they shift and they go invisible, and so people would go in and they're not there, and they were wandering UC Berkeley, so yeah. And I remember Walter Cronkite, and I remember my dad. I was sitting on my dad's chair, and I looked at him. I said, "Look, Daddy, they have Kiosa too," and he's like, "No."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I had a really good time with you, interviewing you, listening to some of your knowledge and your history and your information. I definitely want to have you on again if you're interested, and maybe we can get more people to ask some questions. I think everyone was just excited to hear from you. So, would you be interested to come on again in the future?
Sure, I'd love
to before the summer's over or something.
You name it, I will come.
It's really an honor to have you to come on, because, like I said, I think the last show you did was with Duke maybe a year or two ago, if that.
It's been a little bit longer than that. Yeah,
I think it has. I mean, you have your fair share of trolls and people that have naysayers and they want to talk smack and haters. But you know what? The way I see it, that's all it means, because you're doing something good and they don't like what you're doing, so they want to try to end it. But I believe all your accounts, and I mean, I heard you 5-6 years ago when you first, I wouldn't say first started, but when I first started getting into the Sasquatch community, I did my Bigfoot encounter on Wes Germer's Sasquatch Chronicles, and I was listening to you then back in like 2016. So
yeah, I like to throw this out there, in that what I teach, it's truthful, because Duke, for one, took my vocabulary and went up camping and used it, and he's got them right there on video.
Oh, wow.
Right there on video.
You have sent me some vocabulary that I have used, but I think it was just a quiet night when nothing was around, because I have used it. And I think the next day I had something. It wasn't next. It was 2 nights ago. I had something across the street from my house that sounded like almost like monkeys in a zoo. And then it sounded like an owl and a parrot going off back and forth. And because I tried to record it, and by the time I recorded, I missed it. And all I got was like the crazy owl. It turned into a parrot.
Don't you love those? I love those.
It's like an 800-pound owl and an 800-pound parrot going back and forth with each other.
Yep, I have an 800-pound rooster, and people always ask me, "Where in the world is that rooster?" And I'm like, "Never mind."
Yeah. Well, definitely we'll do this again, Kat. And if you can do some, if you could share any of your like Kiosa stuff to the group, that would be great. Or at least just share it with me, and so I can kind of see. Because I mean, I know you also have a website. Don't you have a website for everybody if they want to come check it out? I'd let you plug that if you like.
Well, it's a mess. I'm the world's biggest techno tard, so I'm figuring it out. But it's called theportaloftruth.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I post my pictures up there and take them down, and videos, things like that are up there. I'm going to start going ahead and posting back up the blogs that I used to do, talking about them. Yeah, I would love to, to share to the group because, like I said, the more information that I can get out there about these guys, it kind of helps everybody. It really does.
Well, that's very precious of you that you're able to do that and help people out because I know there's, not many people are willing to do it. I mean, I know you recently had to turn somebody down because they were not being honest with you what their intentions were. Where are they?
No, no. And I thank the Lord for that one, because he talks to me. So
Yeah.
And I listen.
Absolutely. Well, you have a great night, Kat, and it was good having you on. And take care of yourself. And like I said, we will have you on eventually. Probably the next couple of weeks, maybe 4 to 5 weeks, maybe in a month or so.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to do it again with you, and we can get more people asking questions this time.
Yeah, just yell at me. You guys can all reach me too. You know where I'm at. I'm in Tom's group, or I'm on Facebook. Just, hey, dummy, I'll answer you.
Exactly.
Okay, you have a great weekend. Tell
Have a
your
good
wife
weekend.
I'm sorry I missed her.
That's okay. I think she was in a chat for a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. See, I don't even know where the chat. So, but thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much. And everybody keep learning, please, please,
And
please.
what days do you do your live streams real quick when you do your YouTube?
I'm trying to be good and do them on Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's Khat Hansen on YouTube, right?
Yeah, that's me.
All right, Kat. You have a great night, and thanks again. I appreciate it. I had a great time talking with you.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.